picture this. A grand estate in Purchase, New York.
Okay.
It's 1980. The air, it's thick with that scent of spring. But inside, a tragedy's unfolding.
Oh, wow.
A renowned cardiologist, Dr. Herman Tarnower, the man behind the Scarsdale Diet,
Great.
lies dead.
Oh, gosh.
4 gunshot wounds,
Mm.
and standing over him, the head mistress of a prestigious girls' school, Jean Harris. This wasn't just a murder, it was a scandal
Oh, yeah.
that ripped through high society.
Really?
A story of love, obsession,
Oh, my goodness.
and a final desperate act. Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series.
Yes.
You shared this case with us, and today we're going to really dig into it, examining the events, the people involved, and the lingering questions that still fascinate us.
Well, what strikes me about this case is how quickly it became a media sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, it had all the ingredients for a gripping drama: wealth, status, a love triangle, and of course, the shocking violence. But beneath those headlines, there's a very human story, one that forces us to look at the complexities of relationships and the sometimes devastating consequences of, unaddressed emotions.
Okay, so let's break down the players in this drama.
Okay.
We have Jean Harris, the picture of success in the academic world,
Right.
headmistress of the Madeira School, intelligent, respected, yet it seems deeply lonely.
And then there's Dr. Herman Tarnower, living the good life.
Oh, yeah.
Successful cardiologist, best-selling author, charming, and it's clear he enjoyed female attention, especially from younger women.
Yeah, it's almost like they were from 2 different worlds.
Yeah.
Yet their romance spanned an incredible 14 years, starting back in 1966.
Wow.
But it was far from a storybook love affair, wasn't it?
Not at all. It seems there was a fundamental mismatch in what they each wanted.
Uh-huh.
Jean, despite her outward achievements, longed for stability, commitment, that traditional partnership. Herman, on the other hand, seemed content with keeping things less defined, maintaining his freedom, and, as we know, continuing relationships with other women.
And that brings us to the real turning point, the beginning of the unraveling.
Yes.
By 1980, the cracks in their relationship had become impossible to ignore. Herman's ongoing affairs, particularly his relationship with his much younger secretary, Lynn Triferos, were utterly devastating to Jean.
Right.
It's hard to imagine that humiliation, that sense of betrayal.
And it's crucial to remember that Jean wasn't in the best place emotionally. She was battling health issues and increasingly reliant on prescription medications.
Oh, wow.
So Herman's actions, while hurtful to anyone, would have been amplified tenfold given her fragile state.
It makes you wonder if that contributed to the events of March 10th, 1980, the night everything changed. Jean drove all the way from Virginia to Herman's home in Purchase. Allegedly, she intended to confront him and, tragically, end her own life there.
Her mental and emotional state during that long drive is a key piece of the puzzle. Was this a calculated act driven by a desire for revenge?
Right.
Or was it a desperate, impulsive attempt to reclaim control in a situation where she felt utterly powerless?
When the police arrived at Herman's home, it was like something out of a crime novel. He was dead, shot 4 times, and Jean was there, claiming it was all an accident.
Her version of events is pivotal.
Right.
She maintained that she brought the revolver intending to take her own life in front of Herman.
Oh, gosh.
During a heated argument, she said the gun went off accidentally multiple times as Herman tried to wrestle it away from her.
But of course, the prosecution saw it very differently.
Right.
They argued that her actions were premeditated, fueled by jealousy and rage. That drive, the loaded gun.
Yeah.
It does paint a picture, doesn't it? It makes you think they believe she snapped and went there with the intention to kill.
And it's this clash of narratives that turned the trial into a media frenzy.
Oh, yeah.
You have a respected headmistress, a famous doctor, infidelity, a violent death. It's a recipe for public fascination. And as the trial unfolded, it brought up bigger issues of gender roles, societal expectations, and mental health,
Right.
which resonated deeply with people.
So let's delve into the trial itself. How did each side present their case? What were some of the specific strategies they used to try to sway the jury?
The prosecution, they really went all in on portraying Jean as a woman scorned, driven by a jealous rage.
Right.
They pointed to that long drive from Virginia to New York, the fact that she purchased bullets along the way, and her emotional state as evidence of premeditation. They wanted the jury to see a calculated act of revenge.
It sounds like they were trying to fit her into a certain archetype, the stereotypical jilted woman who lashes out violently.
Exactly. And that narrative, unfortunately, played into some of the gender biases of the time.
Yeah.
There was this underlying sense that women's emotions couldn't be trusted,
Right.
that they were inherently unstable and therefore capable of irrational acts.
It's interesting how societal norms and expectations can influence not just public perception, but also the legal process itself.
Yeah.
But what about the defense? How do they counter that narrative?
The defense focused on humanizing Asian,
Okay.
portraying her not as a cold, calculating killer,
Right.
but as a deeply troubled woman driven to a desperate act by, a toxic relationship and her own deteriorating mental health. They emphasized her emotional fragility, her reliance on medication, and the immense psychological toll that Herman's betrayals had taken on her.
They were basically arguing that the shooting, while tragic, was ultimately unintentional, a result of her emotional state rather than a deliberate plan.
Precisely. They wanted the jury to see her as a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
A woman who had reached her breaking point and acted impulsively in a moment of despair.
The trial must have been incredibly intense, with these two opposing narratives battling it out.
Oh, absolutely.
It's easy to imagine how the media frenzy surrounding the case would have added to the pressure on both sides.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that the jury wasn't immune to those external pressures, to the way Jean was being portrayed in the press. They were being asked to make a life-altering decision amidst a storm of public opinion and speculation.
So after all the arguments, the evidence, the media scrutiny, what was the verdict? How did the jury ultimately rule in this complex and emotionally charged case?
In 1981, the jury found Jean Harris guilty of second-degree murder.
Wow.
She was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison.
Oh, my goodness.
The verdict sent shockwaves through the nation, dividing public opinion.
Yeah.
Some believed justice had been served,
Right.
while others felt that Jean was a victim of circumstance who deserved leniency.
It's a verdict that raises so many questions about how we as a society perceive and judge cases like this.
Yeah.
How much weight do we give to emotions like jealousy, rage, and despair?
Right.
How do we factor in mental health and the complexities of toxic relationships when assessing culpability?
Those are crucial questions. And they're ones that we still grapple with today.
Right.
The Harris case serves as a stark reminder that the legal system, while striving for objectivity, operates within a social context shaped by our collective biases and understandings of human behavior.
Her conviction marked a significant turning point in her life. But as we know, her story didn't end there.
Right.
In fact, in many ways, her life after the trial is even more fascinating. She doesn't just fade into the background of the prison system.
Right.
Instead, she finds a way to use her experience, her platform, to advocate for change.
It's truly remarkable how Jean Harris refused to be defined by her conviction.
Yeah.
While incarcerated, she became a vocal advocate for women's rights and prison reform, particularly focusing on the challenges faced by incarcerated mothers.
It's almost as if she found a sense of purpose, a way to channel her own pain and suffering into something positive, something that could potentially help others.
Exactly. And it challenges us to consider the possibilities of redemption. The idea that even someone convicted of a serious crime can still contribute to society, can use their experiences to advocate for positive change.
It's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to find meaning and purpose, even in the darkest of circumstances.
Right.
But what about her sentence? Did she end up serving the full 15 years to life?
After serving 12 years, Jean Harris was granted parole in 1993.
Okay.
It's hard to imagine what that transition must have been like. To re-enter a world that had moved on without her, to rebuild a life after such a profound and life-altering experience.
I'm struck by the fact that she always maintained her innocence, that the shooting was an accident. Even after serving time for murder, she never wavered from that stance.
Right.
It makes you wonder about the power of belief, of holding on to one's truth, even in the face of overwhelming opposition.
It speaks to the complexities of human psychology,
Yeah.
to the way we construct our own narratives to make sense of the world, even when those narratives clash with external judgments and perceptions.
So Jean Harris goes from headmistress to inmate to advocate.
Yeah.
What does she do with that freedom, that second chance? How does she choose to spend her remaining years?
She dedicated herself to writing and public speaking, sharing her story, her perspective on the events that led to her imprisonment, and her insights on the criminal justice system. It was her way of reclaiming her narrative, of shaping how the world perceived her beyond the sensational headlines and the court transcripts.
She was determined to have her voice heard, to control, at least to some extent, how her story was told.
Right.
But despite her efforts, the Jean Harris case continues to fascinate and provoke discussion even decades later.
It's a case that raises enduring questions about love, betrayal, justice, and the human capacity for both great compassion and devastating acts.
Right.
Some still view her as a cold-blooded killer who manipulated the system,
Yeah.
while others see her as a victim of circumstance, a woman driven to a desperate act by a toxic relationship, and a society that failed to adequately address her mental health needs.
It's a reminder that truth is often multifaceted,
Right.
but there are multiple perspectives and interpretations,
Mhm.
and that sometimes, even after all the evidence is presented and a verdict is reached, the questions linger, the doubts persist, and the debate continues.
Absolutely.
It's those lingering questions, those unresolved issues that make cases like this so compelling, so thought-provoking,
Right.
and ultimately so deeply human.
If there's one key takeaway from this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's that we need to be more aware, more empathetic, more willing to acknowledge the complexities of human experience, whether it's within our own relationships, our families, or our broader society.
Right.
Understanding and addressing those underlying issues, those unspoken struggles, is essential if we want to create a more just and compassionate world.
Well said. This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same way. It's a reminder that behind every headline, every court case, every true crime story, there are real human lives with all their complexities,
Yep.
their flaws, their triumphs, and their tragedies.
And it's in exploring those individual stories and unpacking those multifaceted narratives
Right.
that we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our society, and the intricate web of relationships that connect us all.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the Jean Harris case, what are some of the lingering questions, the unresolved issues that you think are worth pondering as we reflect on this complex and ultimately tragic story?
For me, it's about the lasting impact of this case on how we view women who dare to challenge societal expectations, who dare to speak their minds, who dare to fight for their own desires and ambitions. How far have we come in recognizing and valuing the voices and experiences of women, particularly in situations where power dynamics are at play? That's a question that continues to demand our attention.
Absolutely. And it makes me think about the importance of fostering empathy and understanding,
Yeah.
not just in our personal lives, but in our legal systems, our media portrayals,
Yeah.
and our broader societal narratives.
The Jean Harris case, with all its complexities and contradictions, serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice requires more than just verdicts and sentences.
Right.
It requires a willingness to delve deeper, to question our assumptions, and to strive for a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of the human experience.
Well said. And that's a sentiment I think we can all carry with us as we move forward, not just in analyzing true crime cases, but in engaging with the world around us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Jean Harris case. Remember to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more captivating explorations of the world of true crime. Until next time, stay curious and keep those critical thinking skills sharp. It strikes me that the Jean Harris case, beyond just the personal drama, really tapped into something much bigger happening in society at the time.
What's fascinating is how this case became a lightning rod for conversations about gender roles,
Yeah.
societal expectations, and those often unspoken power dynamics within relationships.
Right.
Remember, this was the 1980s,
Right.
a time of significant social change and evolving attitudes towards women's place in society.
Right. We had Jean Harris, this accomplished, educated woman
Yes.
in a relationship with a powerful, successful, and let's be honest, controlling man.
Right.
Almost Shakespearean, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ambitious woman brought down by love and jealousy. It's no wonder the media latched onto that angle.
Absolutely. And the media frenzy around the trial definitely amplified those themes. Jean was frequently portrayed as a scorned woman, her actions fueled by, irrational emotions. But when we look beyond those simplified portrayals,
Right.
a more nuanced picture emerges.
It makes you question how much of the public perception of Jean Harris was shaped by those societal norms, those unconscious biases about women, ambition, and the consequences of challenging traditional roles.
It's a vital question, and one that resonates even today as we continue to grapple with gender equality and the complexities of relationships. The Harris case, in many ways, became a reflection of society's anxieties and preconceived notions about women, ambition, and what happens when those traditional gender roles are disrupted.
And we can't overlook the issue of mental health, which you mentioned earlier. Jean's emotional fragility,
Right.
her reliance on prescription medication, These were clearly factors in the events leading up to the shooting.
Absolutely. Back then, conversations about mental health were often stigmatized
Yeah.
and marginalized.
Right.
It wasn't something widely discussed or understood, particularly in the context of a criminal trial.
So on the one hand, you have this very public trial, splashed across headlines, debated endlessly on talk shows. But on the other hand, there's this underlying, often unspoken element of Jean's emotional state,
Right.
her mental well-being,
Mhm.
which was perhaps not given the weight or consideration it deserved.
It represents a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Imagine if the trial had also been a platform for open and honest conversations about mental health, about the pressures and expectations placed on women, about the dynamics of toxic relationships. It could have been a watershed moment,
Right.
a catalyst for greater understanding and compassion.
Instead, it seems the focus remained largely on the surface, on the sensational details of the crime and the personalities involved.
Which is unfortunate because, as we've seen throughout this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
the Jean Harris story is so much more than just a crime of passion.
Yeah.
It's a story about societal expectations,
Right.
the complexities of human relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and those often invisible struggles with mental health that many people face silently and alone.
It's a story that encourages us to look beyond the surface, challenge our assumptions, and engage in more open and honest conversations about the forces that shape our lives and choices.
If there's one key takeaway from all of this, it's the need to be more aware, more empathetic,
Right.
more willing to acknowledge the complexities of human experience,
Yeah.
whether it's within our own relationships, our families, or society as a whole. Understanding and addressing those underlying issues, those unspoken struggles, is essential if we want to create a more just and compassionate world.
Well said.
Mm,
This deep dive is certainly giving me a lot to think about, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same way.
yeah.
It's a reminder that behind every headline, every court case, every true crime story, there are real human lives with all their complexities, flaws, triumphs, and tragedies.
And it's in exploring those individual stories, unpacking those multifaceted narratives, that we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our society, and the intricate web of relationships that connect us all.
So to wrap things up, what are some of the lingering questions, the unresolved issues worth pondering as we reflect on this case?
For me, it's about the lasting impact of this case on how we view women who challenge societal expectations, who speak their minds, who fight for their own desires and ambitions.
Right.
How far have we come in recognizing and valuing the voices and experiences of women, particularly in situations where power dynamics are at play? That's a question that continues to demand our attention.
Absolutely. And it makes me think about the importance of fostering empathy and understanding, not just in our personal lives, but in our legal systems,
Yeah.
our media portrayals, and our broader societal narratives. The Jean Harris case, with all its complexities and contradictions,
Right.
serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice requires more than just verdicts and sentences.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a willingness to delve deeper, question our assumptions, and strive for a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of the human experience.
Well said. That's a sentiment we can all carry with us as we move forward, not just in analyzing true crime cases, but in engaging with the world around us.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Jean Harris case. Remember to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more captivating explorations of the world of true crime. Until next time, stay curious and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.